So now we'll chant the introductory prayers together. Please sing along. Om Jnanam Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Svapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavangsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitangsha. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Deenabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today we will cover chapter 17. And chapter 17 is the beginning of a new section in the Nectar of Devotion. So who can tell me which section is this beginning? What is the theme of chapter 17 and 18?
Bhava Bhakti and Prema Bhakti.
Bhava Bhakti. Yes, chapter 17 and 18 is Bhava Bhakti. And then just one chapter, chapter 19 on Prema Bhakti, which is actually very telling that the first 16 chapters are on Sadhana Bhakti, then only 2 chapters on Bhava Bhakti, and only 1 chapter on Prema Bhakti. Why? Because the more we advance in spiritual life, the less needs to be explained. The less can be put down into words. So in the stage of Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, we need so many instructions. So actually we saw how Vaidhi Sadhana, the part of sadhana that is rules and regulations, and it's not on the spontaneous platform, that was something, the first 14 chapters. And then Raganuga Bhakti, even of the sadhana part, was just 1 or 2 chapters, just a little bit. Again, because it's spontaneous devotional service, the devotee is directly guided by the spiritual master and by the Lord within the heart. Bhava Bhakti also a similar situation, and then Prema Bhakti more so. So on the first stage, the stage that most of us are on, Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, we need the most instruction. And now the instruction level is reducing as the stages or the advancements in Bhakti increases. So Bhava Bhakti is so expansive. There's so much, so unimaginably great and expansive, yet only 2 chapters are devoted to this subject. Of course, the rest of the Nectar devotion, the part that we don't study, also deals with these higher levels of devotion. But as far as just teaching us what they are, it's only these chapters. So today we'll cover chapter 17, and next week we'll do 18 and 19. This chapter and chapter 18 are in the third wave of the first ocean. This wave is devotional service in ecstasy, or bhava, the preliminary stage of love of God. This is no longer sadhana bhakti. So even last time when we were talking about Raganuga Bhakti, which is spontaneous devotional service, it was still sadhana bhakti. But now we've actually come, or rather we haven't come, the nectar devotion has come to the second stage, which is bhava bhakti. One at this stage is an uttamadhikari. So one cannot be madhyamadhikari and be experiencing bhava. One has to be an uttamadhikari in order to experience bhava, and anyone who is experiencing bhava is automatically an uttama adhikari. This chapter, chapter 17, defines what bhava is and how it can be attained. So it actually tells us the most important part, which is how can it be attained? All of us want to come to that stage, right? We all want to come to the stage of bhava. So we are very interested in this question, and this is what it's being answered. So the first point that Rupa Goswami begins with is a definition of bhava bhakti. Again, these slides have been compiled and written by Mother Urmila. So that's why you see they're so beautiful. So she has made these beautiful slides. Shuddha sattva visheshatma prema suryangshu samya bhak ruchibhis chittam masrinya kridasau bhava uchyate. When devotional service is situated on the transcendental platform of pure goodness, it is like a ray of the sunlight of love for Krishna. At such a time, devotional service causes the heart to be softened by various tastes, and it is called bhava, or emotion. So these images are so telling because this is what happens at the stage of bhava. So now we know that devotional service is beyond the level of goodness. In fact, goodness is within the three modes of material nature. So why in this definition has it said that it's on the transcendental platform of pure goodness? When the whole point of transcendence was transcending the stage of goodness. Well, this is the stage called Shuddha Sattva. Sattvam Vishuddham Vasudeva Sarvitam. This is the stage of Shuddha Sattva. Shuddha Sattva means pure goodness. And it's completely different than what goodness is. At the same time, there's some continuity. And what is the continuity? So Srila Prabhupada, he's very often he's given the example that how in order to take the plane, in order to take a flight, one has to go to the airport. At the same time, if we go to the airport and we don't take the flight, the purpose has been defeated. It's been defeated. So in the same way, the airport is the mode of goodness, and the flight is pure goodness, Shuddha Sattva. So Prabhupada says we must come to the platform of goodness in order to practice devotional service, pure devotional service. What does that mean? Because you have to come to the airport in order to take the flight. The flight won't come to your city street, to your neighborhood, to your house. You must go to the airport under normal circumstances. In the same way, the devotee must be situated in goodness in order to attract the heart of the Lord and practice devotional service. It's not possible to just, not be on that platform and come in touch with the Lord. One has to be on the level of goodness. But on the material platform of goodness, one cannot maintain that platform of goodness. On the material platform of goodness, we're good for some time, but then we are forced to come down to the platform of passion and ignorance. But on the spiritual platform, we can maintain that level of goodness because that goodness is not the material mode of goodness. It is actually part of the transcendental devotional service to the Lord. That goodness is of a completely spiritual nature of wanting to satisfy the senses of the Lord. On the material platform, goodness, we become very prone to pride. We become very prone to peace. We want to be in our forest and enjoy life in the hermitage, and and just although great devotees also lead that life, but we are attached to that life. That's the point. It's very nice to live in the farm. Prabhupada wanted us to have farm communities, but the devotee is living there out of a service to the Lord, not out of attachment. The devotee is attached to serving the Lord. So if the Lord says go to hell, the devotee will go to hell for the service of the Lord. If the Lord says preach, then the devotee will preach. So that is the spiritual level of pure goodness, Shuddha Sattva. So on the material level, we are very much prone to pride, to becoming attached to peacefulness, to learning, to knowledge, and these may become chains that tie us to this material world. These may condition us to this material world. But pure goodness is on the level of pure devotional service, which is completely selfless and it's only done to satisfy the Lord. Once we are on this stage, pure goodness shines like the ray of the sunlight of love for Krishna from within our heart. We become unaffected by all things. That love for Krishna shines from the heart. And then what that happens, from that, the rays of this pure goodness, the heart becomes softened. So our heart right now is like hard, crusty, ice butter. But when the rays of light of devotional service, Shuddha Sattva, shine on this heart, when they're shining, that is bhava. And that point, the heart becomes extremely soft, like butter. So devotees, you'll notice, have a very soft heart. They're very soft-hearted, and this has been my general experience, that the devotees who are very advanced, they're actually very non-judgmental, very kind, very soft-hearted, very forgiving. These qualities are there. Why? Because of the bhava within their heart. Due to experiencing love for God, due to experiencing the higher ecstatic happiness of Krishna bhakti, a devotional service to Krishna, they become uninterested in any material estimation or material happiness, and so become very kind. The primary characteristic of bhava. So this is the definition, and every definition has a primary characteristic and it has a secondary characteristic. It is and there's one more point here, that heart becomes soft by various tastes. So when we taste Krishna bhakti, when we taste the pleasure of devotional service, then that heart becomes soft. It is a stage. So the primary characteristic of bhava is Shuddha Sattva Visheshatma. That is the first line of this verse. It is the stage when Shuddha Sattva enters the devotee's heart. Shuddha Sattva is not the material mode of goodness, but the Lord's internal potency, whose function is to revive the living entity's dormant love for Krishna. Once again, it is the stage when Shuddha Sattva enters the devotee's heart. Shuddha Sattva is not the material mode of goodness, but the Lord's internal potency. It's not material, it's internal potency of the Lord, whose function is to revive the living entity's dormant love for Krishna. So we think that we made a lot of advancement when we become a little fixed in our sadhana. But actually, love for God becomes revived. It just starts to begin at the stage of bhava. The bhakti is just starting to awaken at the stage of bhava. Imagine how far we are from actual bhakti. As Srila Prabhupada notes, when a person reaches the level of bhava, they are to be understood to be uttama adhikaris. The secondary characteristics, it softens the heart. It gives rise to various tastes. So once Shuddha Sattva is established in the heart, Here we see it softens the heart and it gives rise to various tastes. So the rise of the taste and the softening of the heart are actually the secondary characteristics. These two are there. Lord Chaitanya said, right, that if I chant the holy name of the Lord and tears do not flow down my eyes, that means my heart is as hard as rock. It is as hard as iron, and nothing will soften it. So that is the stage of Uttama Bhakti, that the heart becomes completely softened by this devotion. And then the devotee is experiencing so many different tastes, so many mellows of devotional service, so many emotions. Like last time Prabhupada was saying, emotions. The devotional life, it's all about spiritual emotions. There's so many emotions. It's all in the present. Devotional service is not about the future. It's not about the past, but rather the devotee is feeling so much ecstasy. The devotee is just living in the present, in those emotions of those feelings of different tastes of love of God. So obviously, if at the stage of Raganuga, one is following one of the associates of Vrindavan, at the stage of Bhava, one is definitely serving Krishna in one of the 5 principal mellows, Sakhya, Dasya, Vatsalya, Madhurya. So therefore, one is also tasting that particular mellow of devotional service, Madhurya Ras, or like that. So what is this taste? So the primary characteristics are called Swarupa Lakshana, which is a term you've come across before. We looked at this in the definition of pure devotional service. We have the Swarupa Lakshana, which is the primary characteristics. And now Bhava Bhakti's Tatashta Lakshana, these are the secondary characteristics. This is being described here further in Jiva Goswami's commentary on this verse of Rupa Goswami. So Ruchibhi gives rise to various tastes. What are these? A, Prapti Abhilasha, an intense desire to achieve Krishna. So we must intensely desire to achieve Krishna. Anukulya Abhilasha, desire to please Krishna with various services. So to attain the Lord, and then also to please Krishna with so many different services. So Harda Abhilasha, desire to be close at heart with Krishna. To be very close to Krishna, that is also heart to heart. Like in the Krishna book, in the sound of Krishna's flute, is described that the cows and calves, when Krishna would play his flute, they would cry in ecstasy. Tears would come down their eyes, and they were embracing the Lord heart to heart. So elevation to bhava is possible in 2 ways. So this is the definition. Now, how do we reach the stage of bhava? How do we reach it? We want to be there. How do we get there? Prabhupada, in this chapter, if you read the chapter, when you see, he specifically describes 2 ways. The first one is constant association with devotees. So we reach the stage of bhava by associating with devotees who are on that stage. It's amazing. No other qualification or requirement is described. How important this association is with devotees. Constant association with devotees. Constant. This is what is mentioned in the beginning of the chapter as regulated devotional service. So what is the regulated devotional service of a person who is aspiring to reach the stage of bhava, who you could say is on the platform of Raganuga and now wants to reach the stage of bhava? Their regulated devotional service is to seek and constantly associate with devotees. We cannot reach the stage of bhava in a vacuum. We must be surrounded. We must associate with devotees on that stage. It's just amazing. Those devotees, they give something. They have what we cannot reach through years of intellectual exercise. Just by seeing them, by associating with them, we reach that stage. And sometimes this association is through reading. So when we read the Bhava Bhaktas in the Bhagavatam, when we read Prabhupada's books, we are associating with these devotees. When we read the Nectar of Devotion, we are associating with Rupa Goswami. And so that association is so potent, it can actually bring bhava in our heart after some time, after regular association and constant practice, we can reach that stage. But also physically, the physical association, I think all of us on this call have experienced that when you're in the association of a bhava bhakta, of a devotee on that stage, you feel like you make advancement of millions of lifetimes in those few days or those years that you're with that devotee, because they have this surrender to the Lord that we don't have the confidence to reach. They have that surrender that we ourselves, we cannot push ourselves to do it. We know that it's the right thing. We know what the practice of devotional service is. How many of us have felt like this? But we don't have the confidence to actually do it. And when we see the devotee, it's someone who's actually done it and is actually living it. And then we say, no, I can also jump. It's just like, I think some of you may have seen some young boys and girls, they will jump into the river and they jump into the deep parts of the river. Now, jumping into the river is very, very dangerous, more than a lake, more than anything else. Because why? Because of the rocks. If you jump into the river from like a bridge, a very high point, they jump from such high places, high cliffs or something like this. And if there's even one rock down there, every single bone in your body will be broken. And so no one jumps, and no one will ever jump. However, you see like hundreds of these teenagers jumping into the water. Sometimes it's the ocean, all these. How do they do it? They do it only after the first person does it. Some or the other, I don't know which century or what someone discovered that if you jump at this point, there's no rock down there. You won't break your bones. And because the first person has jumped, they know, okay, I'll come out alive. There's no rock down there. And so I can jump there. And so then after that, one after another, they'll jump. I remember as a school, not school, but as a young boy when I was studying, I would apply this policy all the time. We were sometimes, swimming or something like this. I'd only go after the first person went. And I was always, it's like, okay, that person, I can go now. There's less risk, less fear. So it's the same thing with the devotee, that attaining this stage requires a surrender to the Lord, that requires giving up our material desires and aspirations, which we are very attached to. And we truly cannot take that step. It is so scary. It's even more scary than jumping into the lake for the devotee. It is so scary. We cannot do it, but we can do it by the mercy and the association and the example of the devotees of the Lord. Like we have the story of Sanatana Goswami and the man who came in search of a gem. So not exactly gem of wealth. So Sanatana Goswami, we were reading, right? Dhira dhira jana priyo priyakaro. That they were, they were dear both to the ruffians and to the Gentile. Everyone, wherever they stayed, the whole town would come to them for advice because they're just so saintly. So when Sanatana Goswami was coming and Sanatana Goswami was there, then one time a man came up to him and said, my family is so poor. My wife, my children are always hungry. They're crying out of hunger. And I just don't know what to do. I'm a very poor man. I cannot sustain them. Can you please help me? I really need some money. I need some wealth. So Sanatana Goswami says, sure, I can help you. He says, come here, come here. And he takes him to a big pile of trash. And he says, look in this pile of trash, you'll find a gem. And in that gem is this very, very touchstone. It is a very, very precious gem. And once you have this, all your material problems will be solved. So you take it and you go. And we see that devotees of the Lord, I've experienced even contemporary times, devotees of the Lord also help devotees, senior devotees will also help devotees with their material problems also. Because sometimes our material problems are connected with our spiritual life. We have some, if our family is hungry, how can they hear and chant? So it is a problem. So, he was helping him. And so he said, you take this touchstone. So then the man takes it. He's very, very happy. And he starts walking back home. And then he thinks, Sanatana Goswami kept this stone in a big pile of trash. And so therefore, this could not be the most valuable thing that he has. Therefore, this cannot be the most valuable thing. It must be that he has something even more valuable, because no one keeps their most valuable thing in a pile of trash that is about to be thrown away. It's a fact. So then this man goes back to Sanatana Goswami, and then Sanatana Goswami tells him, yes, indeed, I have something far more valuable. And so he says, oh, what do you have? Tell me, give me. And, all the while he's clenching onto his touchstone and asking Sanatana Goswami, what more valuable thing do you have? And he says, you come here. So he follows Sanatana Goswami to the shore of the bank of the river. And Sanatana Goswami says, you throw this touchstone into the river. And once you throw it into the river, then I'll tell you. Then I will give you the most valuable thing that I have. And so the man, he's clenching on to his touchstone. He's saying, should I give it up? Should I not? Should I give it up? Should I not? If I give this up, I might not get something more valuable. But if I don't give it up, then will I get that valuable thing? And so then, due to the influence and association of Sanatana Goswami, he throws that touchstone into the river. And then Sanatana Goswami, he says, now that you've thrown that away, now you're eligible to get the special mercy of the Lord. Then he gives him the holy name, and that person becomes eternally happy, and his family as well. So this is what our situation is. This is what our condition is, that in order to get bhava bhakti, we have to give up our material bhakti, but we are unable to do that. And it's the association of the devotees like Sanatana Goswami that allows us to throw that rock into the river so that we can get the unalloyed mercy and blessings of the devotees. Now, so this is one method, and this is the method of reaching bhava bhakti. And then Srila Prabhupada says that there is also some exceptions where devotees who do not do regulated devotional service. So constant association with devotees means constant service. Association with devotees means serving devotees. Now, some people did not do that lifelong service, but they still got bhava bhakti. Why is that? Because they got some special mercy. They got some causeless special mercy, and they were just bestowed this bhava due to the desire of the Lord and his devotee. So Prabhupada at this point asks, he says, what are the different ways we get a university degree, a PhD? Who can say, what are the different ways by which we get a PhD?
By going through the course and getting the degree after a master's. I don't know.
Nice. So the most common, most principal way of getting a degree is to go through the courses and get the master's degree and study very hard, and then you get the PhD.
Getting an honorary PhD?
Yes. And the second way that we can get a PhD is to get an honorary PhD. That is the only other way. There's two ways people get it. The other way is people get an honorary degree. Like my Guru Maharaj, Gopal Krishna Goswami Maharaj, he's actually Dr. Gopal Krishna Goswami Maharaj, because he got a PhD from one of the universities in India. They gave him an honorary doctorate for his service to Indian culture and the land of India, they said. Of course, he was doing for Srila Prabhupada and Krishna, but they understood it in this way. And so some very famous university in Delhi gave him an honorary degree. So this is another way that people get a PhD. But as you know, it's very rare. It's, you have to do something very fantastic. For that, you have to be lucky. Most people in the material world, they get the honorary degree when they have a lot of money, when they give a big donation to the university. And I'm a university professor, so I know this. In all the universities I've taught consistently, when they give a big donation to the university, then the university will come and say, this is such a great man. And look at, they'll find some reason to praise him. He has 3 horses and he has wonderful grandchildren. And therefore we're giving him an honorary PhD. But the real reason is because he gave $1 million to the university and they want them to give $1 million more. So unless you're very lucky, you're fortunate, you're born in wealth, or you become very lucky and you get a lot of wealth, you won't get this honorary degree. So the special mercy of the Lord can give us this devotional service. But Srila Prabhupada is saying that says that to wait for that special mercy and not to make the effort ourselves is like someone waiting for a PhD to get an honorary degree, someone waiting to get an honorary degree. And such devotional service will not be beneficial for us. Such waiting, such just procrastination will not be beneficial for us. If Krishna's mercy comes out of its own accord, if we get lucky and Krishna's mercy comes, then it comes. But we cannot depend on that causeless special mercy, which is very, very rare. And we have to go through the regular route of getting our PhD, that is getting Bhava Bhakti. The usual method is constant association with devotees. The other is rare. So one should render service very seriously in association of devotees. An example is Narad Muni in his previous life. So then Srila Prabhupada particularly gives the story of Narad Muni, which is one of the most loved stories in the Srimad Bhagavatam. He served in association of the great devotees and he came to the level of Bhava. So Narad Muni is an example, the example of a person who did not have Bhava, but who came to the level of Bhava due to the association of great devotees. So Narad Muni was born as an insignificant son of a maidservant. Right? His mother was just a maidservant, and either his father had passed away or died, or he didn't know who his father was. That's what her position was in the society. She was just a maidservant, and he was the son of such an insignificant maidservant. But due to some good fortune, that lady was a maidservant in the ashram, not in some, rich households also have maidservants, but she was a maidservant at an ashram where great saintly souls used to come. And because she was serving in that association of great saintly souls, Narad Muni also would tag along with her, and he would be in that ashram around those devotees, inadvertently bumping into them and getting their association. So Narad Muni describes that once during the rainy season, the 4 months of the rainy season, which is right now, Chaturmasya, very auspicious time, some exalted Vaishnavas came to the Brahmana school where my mother was living. So these were not just Brahmanas. There was actually an ashram with Brahmanas, but some Vaishnavas, some very exalted Paramahansa Vaishnavas visited that ashram where the Brahmana's school was and where his mother was a servant. I also, Narad Muni says, got the opportunity to render personal service unto them. Although impartial by nature, they blessed me with their causeless mercy, because even though I was only a small boy, I was self-controlled. I did not speak more than required. I was not naughty, nor interested in childish play. So Narad Muni, he also was carrying, and this is where I was saying how, Shuddha Sattva is higher than Sattva, but there's also continuity there where we have to be on the platform of Sattva, or it is very helpful to be on the platform of Sattva in order to come to the platform of Shuddha Sattva. So Narad Muni also was born with some Sukriti, and he was in the mode of Sattva. He was self-controlled. He did not speak too much, meaning that he was not argumentative. He was not retorting to those brahmanas. He was simple and obedient. He was not naughty or just interested in playing all the time like children are. Actually, too much playing for children is not necessary. It's actually a distraction from their spiritual life. Like we see many parents, they get their children involved in everything. They get them children enrolled in all types of sports: swimming, basketball, soccer, debate, music, dance. They have to know every skill. And they think they're doing, this is good for the children. Well, to some degree, but not too much. Here, specifically, Narad Muni and Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport that Narad Muni did not play too much. He was more interested in spiritual life, not in all these sports. He was not interested in so many sports. So one sport is enough. One hobby is enough. The rest of the time should be dedicated to serving Krishna. So he says, I did not speak more than required. I was not naughty or interested in childish play. And therefore, seeing him to be a very gentle and serious boy, they bestowed their causeless mercy on Narad Muni. And so he would be around them, he would be serving them. Like you see in this image, he came and he offered them a plate of prasadam. He was doing service for the Vaishnavas. Once, with their permission, I took the remnants of their food, and as a result, all of my sins were eradicated. Because of this, due to serving such great souls, the life of devotional service to the Lord became very attractive to me. So two things are very, very powerful in this world that bring about pure devotional service. One of them is the remnants of the devotees' food, and the other is the dust from their feet. So these two things, if we can secure on a regular basis, then we become very, very advanced very quickly in spiritual life. And we get the prasad or the mercy of the devotee also by serving them. By satisfying them, we get their dust and their mercy. So he says, because of this, the remnants of the food, and due to serving great souls, the prasad and the service, my devotional life became very attractive to me, the life of devotion. In their association, I heard narrations of Lord Krishna's transcendently attractive pastimes. By such regular and attentive hearing, my taste for such topics increased at every step. So that constant association brought the prasad, it brought the service, and it also brought the shravanam, the hearing, which is the beginning of spiritual life, hearing about the Lord. Then he started hearing about them. And it's actually a fact that this process is very scientific, that it's generally service that leads to the desire to hear. Like, when people come initially to the temple, right in the beginning, they're not interested in attending the class, they're not interested in anything like this, but they're interested in doing some seva, and they think it's some pious thing. And so they come and help cook in the kitchen, or they help clean the temple floor. And it's very important to engage them in that service. It's actually a very important preaching method. Because then what happens, and I actually saw this in my life many times, they go and they serve in the kitchen with the devotees. And while serving, they get this realization that these devotees are working so hard. No one in the world works so hard. I mean, no one in this world does so much hard work for no pay, just to please others. They must have something. One person actually told me this. I heard this their own mouth. He says, this is what made him into a devotee. He came and he did some service and he observed the devotees. And he's like, there has to be something that's driving these people, because I've never seen someone serve so selflessly, so affectionately, so kindly for no pay, for no, not for their family, not for anything. They must be experiencing something. So then by that service, then he got a desire to go and listen to what they're saying in the classes. What is their philosophy? He said, then I was curious, what is their philosophy? And so they started attending the lectures, and then from that, then he became a devotee. For more service he did, and then more lectures, more service, more lectures. So like this, service and chanting, hearing, chanting, service, all these things develop our love for Krishna. When this transcendental taste became very strong, my attention became fully fixed on hearing about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As a result, the modes of passion and ignorance vanished from my heart, and I realized myself to be different from the gross and subtle bodies. I loved those pure devotees greatly, and with very gentle behavior, I strictly followed their instructions. So Narad Muni developed a a distinct affection. He says, I loved those pure devotees. He developed an affection for the devotees, an actual love for the devotees. And this happens. We become very attached to these devotees, like how nice they are. And when we step back and we think about it, then we actually can realize how nice devotees are. Sometimes when we're not in the association of devotees, then we realize how cruel the material world is. And then when we come in the association of devotees again, then we realize, my God, the devotees are so kind, especially the advanced devotees. I love those pure devotees, and with very gentle behavior. So a disciple, a student has to be gentle. They have to be willing to learn. They have to be open for correction. They have to be open to direction. Prabhupada in one place says that actually humility means being open to correction, being open to direction. That is actually the meaning of humility, that we're willing to be corrected and directed. So due to his affection for the devotees, he became fully fixed in hearing about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then all the gunas, passion and ignorance, notice goodness did not go. Goodness becomes purified. Goodness does not go. Sattva becomes Shuddha Sattva. So passion and ignorance vanish from my heart. And he realized the difference between the gross and subtle bodies. He's still somewhat on the level of goodness at this point, and it's turning into pure goodness. So on the level of goodness, we can realize the difference between the subtle and gross body. And on the transcendental level, we can realize the difference between the soul and the body. Then when they were about to depart, they instructed me in bhakti yoga. So when the devotees then, they came for some time, then they thought, before I leave, I want to give Krishna consciousness. And he was the prime candidate. The Brahmanas may have been too proud, and he was humble. And so this is why it's said actually that sometimes that being a Shudra, being of a simple nature, is sometimes more valuable in Krishna consciousness than being of the Brahmana nature. Someone says, oh, I'm a Shudra, I cannot be a nice devotee. But Narad Muni was born in a Shudra family. His Varna, so to say, his nature was that of a Shudra. And therefore he became the most qualified because of his submissive and openness to devotional life. Whereas the Brahmanas, due to their knowledge and intelligence, may not have been so open, so ready to accept a devotional service. When they were about to depart, they instructed me in bhakti yoga. One day, while going out to milk a cow, my mother was bitten by a serpent and died. I took this as the Lord's special mercy. So now he got this great benediction of the Lord, the highest happiness, but that was accompanied with calamity. Imagine Narad Muni. We sometimes feel that the whole material world is against us, and we sometimes feel that spiritual life is so hard, or just life in general is such a struggle. But Narad Muni in this world only had his mother. He only had his mother. That's the only person he had in this world. Like I said, his father was unknown. He had no brothers and sisters. He had no grandparents, nothing. Just the one person who was caring for him, who was his companion, was his mother. And when Narad Muni is ready, then Krishna takes away his mother. And how does Narad Muni respond? Someone else would have been devastated. Narad Muni responds that I took this as the Lord's special mercy. He was left alone in this world. He was the only one in this world. And therefore he could take complete shelter of the Lord. Because the only thing that was left in this world was the Lord. He could then take complete shelter of the Lord. He could take shelter of Krishna 100%. He did not need to take shelter of any other person in this world. But to do that requires advancement, and he was able to do that because of his advancement in spiritual life. Because of the mercy of the devotees, he was able to do that. So the great lesson is told in this, that we can only get bhava, we can only get the highest stage of devotion if the only shelter we have in this world is the Lord. When our only refuge is Krishna, that is required to reach the stage of bhava. And we see this actually in the lives of many, many devotees. And what's interesting actually is that we see this also in the lives of like the saints and prophets of other religions as well. Confucius, for example, he was, like the father of the Chinese religions. Very similar story, but of course the level of devotion was completely different. Confucius, his life was such, he was actually born of a very wealthy father, but then his father died. And so his mother and him were left in poverty. No one cared for them. They didn't have any connections, nothing like that. And so he and his mother were like the closest companions. This was China, thousands of years ago, 2,500 years ago, a very difficult world at that time, especially for women and children. And so he's left only with his mother and him, and they were doing basically slave labor, but still he had a reason to live. And then what happens? Sure enough, his mother dies. And then he's left completely alone in this world. And he says at that point, he was completely destroyed. So he was not advanced spiritually. So unlike Narad Muni, he could not immediately accept it as the mercy of the Lord. But he was completely distraught. And then what does Confucius do? Confucius starts to travel. It's actually written in his biography that Confucius starts to travel. And when he travels, he sees so many towns and villages and people, and he starts to realize, the actual realization that he has is that there's so much pain in this world. He has his own pain. He has his own, heart-wrenching story. But he starts to realize that everyone in China was suffering so much, especially from these merciless warlords who would come and, just use them as pawns and kill them. He realized there's so much suffering. And so he said, I'm now going to, his whole life's dedication became acting for the welfare of others. He said, now the only reason I have to live is to act for the benefit of others, and I will change China. I will bring China to a state of harmony, to its original glory. This became his life's mission. This is in Confucius's biography. And then he spends the rest of his life completely dedicated to this singular purpose, which was to bring harmony back to China. And that's why his whole religion, his whole teaching is all about social harmony. It's all about harmony. This is their religion, because this was his life's purpose, and he was successful. Now about 700 million Chinese are Confucians. They follow Confucius. He is the single most influential philosopher of China. So he was a little bit more just on the platform of sattva-gun, on the platform of goodness. He hadn't realized the Lord, but he dedicated his life for the cause of goodness. In the case of Narad Muni here, we see the same thing. But that point only came, the point being that point only came when he had nothing else in this world. And there is such a power to that when we have nothing else in this world, then we dedicate ourselves to a singular purpose. So the same thing with reaching the Lord, attaining the Lord. When we have nothing else in this world, then we will dedicate ourselves to that singular purpose of reaching Krishna. And that is the stage of bhava. So he took this as a special mercy of the Lord. Even though I had no experience of foreign lands, I immediately left home and started for the north. So imagine, it's unbelievable. A boy of 5-6 years old, he had no experience of foreign lands. You would think that he would just take shelter of the ashram where his mother stayed. It was kind of his safe space. People there liked him, but he just left and started for the north. So this is what the association of devotees can do for you. As an ordinary child, could he have done this? He could never have done this. But due to the association of those devotees, he got the inner strength. He had the strength to go out and seek the Lord. He had no fear because of that association. He advanced so much. He came to that level of advancement because of that association. Same thing we see with Srila Prabhupada and his disciples, right? His disciples became such advanced devotees only because of the influence of Srila Prabhupada. And they did things that no one could imagine because of Prabhupada's association. After, can someone read this? The first line gets hidden.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mataji.
Oh, thank you, Mataji. After passing numerous cities, towns, villages, farms, forests, mountains, and valleys, I entered a densely dark jungle with snakes, owls, and jackals.
Yes. So he goes out. This is called, Prabhupada calls this the pilgrim's progress. When we go to pilgrimage places, we progress. It's called the pilgrim's progress. Actually, it's also in Christianity, they call it the pilgrim's progress. So he sees the forest, the valleys, the mountains. He realizes the expansive nature of Krishna's creation. When we get the big picture, then the small problems become very small. So in the same way, when we have the bigger understanding of what Krishna's creation is, we are able to appreciate the Lord more. And some of these jungles had snakes, owls, and jackals, and he had no fear. Why? Because he was fearless. He was dedicated to the protection of the Lord. Since I had become very thirsty and fatigued, I drank the water and bathed to refresh myself. Of course, in the modern age, we don't have forests left. So our pilgrimage is not going to forests, it's going to the holy places. It's going to the many temples that Srila Prabhupada established. Then I sat down under the shade of a great banyan tree and began to meditate upon the supersoul within, as I had learned from my spiritual masters. So the devotee sees the supersoul within everyone's heart. And that's how Narad Muni was also surviving in the jungle. He was seeing the supersoul in all the plants, in all the animals, in all the snakes, the owls, the birds. He could see the supersoul within their heart. And he then began to meditate upon the Supreme Soul within his heart. Right? Within his own heart, he began to see the Supreme Lord. As soon as I began, okay, someone else read this.
As soon as I concentrated my mind upon the lotus feet of the Lord, it became transformed due to transcendental love. As tears fell from my eyes, Lord Sri Krishna appeared on the lotus of my heart, and then all my senses became spiritually enlivened.
Yes. So this same experience was also experienced by Dhruva Maharaj. Right? All the problems go away when we are able to see the Lord, when we are in touch with the Lord. When he was able to concentrate his mind on the Lord and become in touch with the Lord, he became established in transcendental love. And the Lord appeared on the lotus of his heart. Someone else can read.
Thus, when the Lord vanished from my sight, I suddenly got up with great agitation. Despite my efforts to capture him with my meditation, I could not do so.
So he sees the Lord and he begins to cry. Tears come down his eyes after seeing the Lord. But then he loses sight of the Lord. And once he loses that sight, he becomes very, very agitated. So this is like the experience many devotees have, I think all of us have had. When we join Krishna consciousness, we feel a great sense of ecstasy. The Lord gives special mercy, but then that mercy, that ecstasy goes away. And we make efforts and still that ecstasy does not come back. We make more efforts, still that ecstasy does not come back. And so then Narad Muni is very, very disturbed. What has happened? Why is this ecstasy not coming back? And we also must be wondering about this. How is it that I can get this bhava? How can I get this ecstasy? Someone else can read.
Hare Krishna. Upon seeing my sincere attempts in that lonely place, the Lord, while remaining invisible, spoke to me with gravity and pleasing words, just to mitigate my sorrow. O Narada, I regret to inform you that you will not be able to see me again during this lifetime. Those who are not free from all material contamination can hardly approach me. Thank you.
Yes. So we had mentioned how, right, that the stage of bhava is the stage where Shuddha Sattva the primary characteristic of Bhava is Shuddha Sattva, that the heart is established and softened by Shuddha Sattva. Shuddha Sattva means pure goodness. So here Krishna is saying that until you have material contamination within your heart, you cannot get it. You cannot approach me. So what is the problem? So Krishna showed himself. Why is he not showing himself again? You will not be able to see me again during this lifetime. Why? Because you're not completely free from all material contamination. Now, because someone will say, well, no, Narad Muni, he is the second category. He got the special mercy of the Lord. He got Bhava Bhakti like this. We are in the other category, but no, he's not. He's in the first category where he had to do regulative devotional service to attain the Lord. He's a 5-year-old boy. Remember, he's 5 years old right now. And Krishna is telling him that for the rest of his life, he will have to perform devotional service. He will have to serve the Lord to get free from all material contamination. And then only in his next life will he see Krishna again. So sometimes we feel like I've been practicing Krishna consciousness 30 years now. I mean, what's happening? Well, why not? So Narad Muni was practicing so intensely, fully dedicated, that even for him, it took a lifetime. It took a lifetime of devotional service. And so he says that right now you cannot approach me. And what was the second reason that Krishna withheld his own vision? We'll see this in the next slide. Okay, one more slide, but go ahead, someone can read.
Hare Krishna.
You can go ahead, Mataji.
Okay. By my mercy, neither your advancement in Krishna consciousness nor your remembrance will ever be impeded, even at time of creation or annihilation.
So by Krishna's mercy, neither his advancement nor his Krishna consciousness he will ever forget. So Bhava can take many lifetimes. And that's, I mentioned one quote last time from Bhaktivinoda Thakur where he mentions this thing. So this must be true, even in the case of Narad Muni, who had the association, the mercy of the devotees. It was a multi-life process. Now, of course, just one more life in his case, but it was not easy, right? It was not something ordinary. It was something very, very, Krishna gives very carefully only. So another reason, and it's not mentioned here, is that Krishna says, you won't see me because I want to increase your hankering for me. So Bhava is past Raganuga, and in Raganuga we said the requirement was the lobha or the greed to serve Krishna spontaneously. That was how we get Raganuga bhaktis, by having that greed, by having that intense desire. So by not showing himself to Narad Muni again, he was also increasing Narad Muni's hankering, his desire to see the Lord. And that is something that is very, very, very important to note here. That hankering takes place when we're in separation from the Lord. And we find in Christianity also, there's the dark night of the soul. They call this the dark night of the soul, that the Lord appears in someone's life when everything else becomes dark. It's called the dark night of the soul. So in the abyss of darkness, the Lord makes his appearance. When the soul is truly pining for the Lord, when the soul is begging for the Lord and crying out for the Lord, and has nothing else, everything, his whole life has got dark, then the Lord manifests. Then the Lord appears in that heart. So that is love and separation. That even the Lord himself disappears from the devotee. So in the case of Narad Muni, right, he loses everything in this world. He loses his mother. He has no other relatives. He has no money. He's in the forest. He's lost everything material. And you think now the Lord will appear to that devotee. And the Lord does appear. But then the devotee even loses the Lord. Even God does not show his compassion, show his mercy to that devotee. Even he hides himself. That is called the dark night of the soul. And in Christianity, they actually talk about this a lot, where the practitioner, they also don't experience the mercy of God. They feel that God is punishing them. They feel that God is absent, no taste, no direction from the Lord, no guidance from the Lord within the heart. And so the Lord also disappears from that devotee. And then that devotee, if the devotee then seeks out the Lord, in other words, then in that state, if the devotee follows the Lord or chases the Lord, is practicing Krishna consciousness, then the Lord appears to that devotee. Then that devotee becomes perfect. I was thinking just now of one example of this, of how the devotee becomes perfect by this process. I would say yes. Thinking about the gopis, the example of the gopis, that they are the perfect. This is exactly what Narad Muni is going through. Is what the gopis example is. That when Krishna plays his flute, the gopis leave everything and they run to Krishna. Now, the key point here to understand is that when the gopis leave everything to come to Krishna, then at that point, the gopis are leaving with no possibility of coming back. Very important to realize. They have no possibility of coming back home. Why? Because in Vedic culture at that time, if a woman left the house without her husband at the dead of night and stayed one night with another man, which in this case is Krishna, no one would accept that woman back. I mean, their social position was completely finished. Their social position would have been completely finished. Their family life is completely finished. Their husbands would reject them. So this is the gopis, that they're running towards Krishna. They're going towards Krishna, realizing the risk that they are taking. Not just the risk, realizing the reality that they cannot come back if they do this. But still, they're so in love with Krishna and they're so eager to see Krishna, so intensely desiring Krishna, that they leave everything and they go to Krishna in the dead of night. And there Krishna meets them, right? And they meet with Krishna and they begin to, converse with him and interact with him. Of course, Krishna chides them first and tells them to go back home, but then they stay. And then they're walking with Krishna. And then what happens? Who can say what happens at that point?
Krishna
Now
disappears.
disappear.
Yes, Krishna disappears. Right? So they left everything. They have no material life left. They've left it all for Krishna. But then what does Krishna do? Krishna disappears. And then what are they left with? They're just left with a scary, dangerous forest. There's no material comfort there. There's no material happiness there. And there's also no Krishna. And then they start praying to the Lord. They start singing songs to the Lord. These are called the songs of the gopis. And then Krishna returns, and he fully rewards them. By then, after this happens, then the rasa dance happens. So then Krishna returns, and the whole rasa dance takes place. And then they become qualified after this feeling of loss, feeling of emptiness, feeling of hopelessness. Then they become qualified to dance with Krishna. Because in that hopelessness, they are yearning for Krishna. They know they have nothing in this world, only Krishna. And even Krishna has disappeared. And then all night, which is a Brahma's night, Krishna is doing the rasa dance. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur actually says this. He says that the first wave of bhakti rasa, the first shower of bhakti rasa, comes in the form of intense agony. This is the dark night of the soul. This is the gopis without Krishna. And then the second wave of bhakti comes in the form of a sweet shower of bhakti rasa, of unlimited, unimaginable joy and happiness. So that is the stage when it comes, but it only comes after the first stage has come. So this is the pilgrim's progress, right? This is the path of devotion. Every devotee must go through this dark night of the soul. So the good news is, if you haven't gone through it, you can expect it. And if you have gone through it, congratulations, you're getting close to the goal, to the end. So we will all experience a time in our spiritual life where we'll lose everything materially, and we will also feel that the devotees have forsaken us, Krishna has forsaken us. We will also feel that everyone has betrayed us. But at that point, like Narad Muni recognized it, at that point, we have to recognize that this is the special mercy of the Lord. At that point, we have to understand that, no, this is a time to be more determined. Krishna is doing this to me to test my hankering for him, to increase my hankering for him, and to test my devotion. And so Krishna here does this with Narad Muni, and he stops speaking, and then he disappears. So the next person can read.
Thus I began chanting the holy name and fame of the Lord by repeated recitation, ignoring all the formalities of the material world. So doing, I traveled all over the earth, fully satisfied, humble, and unenvious.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So where do we get the strength? What is the strength by which we pass through the dark night of the soul? In every case, we see that the strength comes through the chanting of Krishna's holy names. Like in the case of the gopis, they start to sing songs about Krishna and enact his pastimes. So they're chanting, they're singing songs about Krishna, they're remembering Krishna and enacting his pastimes. Here, Narad Muni is saying that he repeatedly chanted the holy name of Krishna. He passed through that difficult testing time by connecting with Krishna through the holy name. And we see a similar case in the example of Srila Prabhupada. He leaves everything, he comes on this voyage, he gets 2 heart attacks on the way. And then when he comes finally to New York City, there someone robs him and chases him out of his apartment with a knife. And he's left on the street. This is the material world, right? The harshness, the cruelness of this material world. And then how does he pass through this? He takes shelter of the Lord. He's chanting Krishna's holy names. And then Krishna's made this material world harsh so that we can take shelter of his sweetness, take shelter of the sweetness of Krishna. So Prabhupada is always seen with his bead bag. At that time on the streets of New York City, he was chanting Krishna's holy names. Next person.
In due course of time.
Sorry.
In due course of time, I met with death. Thereafter, I appeared as one of Lord Brahma's sons. Since then, I have been traveling, constantly singing the transcendental message of the Lord, vibrating this instrument called a veena, which is changed with transcendental sound and which was given to me by Lord Krishna.
So he meets death, and Prabhupada in the full version, this is kind of summarized here. He says, like lightning meets something. I forget what exactly Prabhupada says, but death meant that he was meeting the Lord. Death did not mean death for him. Death, in the course of time, he gave up his body, he died, but that was like illumination, lightning. And he appeared as one of Lord Brahma's sons. And since that time, he's continuously traveling and vibrating the message of the Lord on his transcendental veena. Actually, the sound of his veena, we were just reading that the sound of his veena is the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra also. Like even the sound of his veena is not material. The veena itself, that sound is the sound of Krishna's holy names. It was given to him by Krishna, so obviously. Someone else?
The Supreme Lord Krishna, whose glories and activities are pleasing to hear, at once appears on the seat of my heart, as if called for as soon as I begin to chant his holy activities.
Yes. So the Lord appears on the seat of our heart, on the level of, now Narad Muni is on the level of prema. So he gets bhava due to the association of the devotees, but this is the level of prema, that whenever he chants, the Lord is seated on his heart. Also on the stage of bhava, but he's now on the level of prema. But starting the stage of bhava, whenever the devotee chants, the Lord appears in the devotee's heart. So here he is, the transcendental spaceman. Shri Narad Muni ki jai. So this is, he is described in this chapter and by Srila Prabhupada, by Rupa Goswami, as the Bhava Bhakta, the exemplar Bhava Bhakta, who is showing us the path to this stage. So we will also have to traverse this path to come to the stage of Bhava. Spiritually, maybe materially our circumstances will be different, but internally, in terms of our detachment, in terms of our stages of devotion, in terms of our mental state, we will have to go through the same path. And in fact, this is the path that all the world's religions, as I described, are describing, that this is the path to God, where we have to pass through all difficulties and challenges and be fully determined to reach the Lord. And that strength comes from where? That determination comes from where? From the constant association of the devotees of the Lord. That's what gives birth to bhava. So Prabhupada then gives other examples in the Nectar devotion of devotees who got this special mercy and who attained bhava not as a result of regular practice like Narad Muni did and like we all have to do, but just because of some special mercy, some, so to say, winning the lottery type of mercy. And one example he gives is the girl who danced all night to get the mercy of the Lord. So I'm not sure which girl this refers to, but whichever fortunate girl this is, we can also follow this example and dance all night to get the mercy of the Lord. Achieving bhava solely by mercy is not common. Srila Prabhupada says that one who expects to achieve bhava by mercy alone is like one who expects to complete college, but not by studying hard, but by getting an honorary degree. So we cannot get this mercy so easily, so we must work hard for it, generally speaking. Development of ecstatic love simply by speaking. So now this special mercy can come in three different ways. This special mercy can be imbued in the soul by three processes. One is just by the speaking of the Lord or his devotee. So just the Lord or devotee has to say it and it comes to us. In the Naradiya Purana, Lord Krishna said to Narada, "O best of the Brahmanas, I wish that you may develop unalloyed devotional service to me, which is full of transcendental bliss and all auspiciousness." So Narada receives this unalloyed devotion simply by the desire of Lord Krishna, which we just said he did through practice, but this is yet another example that the Lord is also giving special mercy to Lord Narada just by his words. Developing ecstatic love toward Krishna simply by glancing. So Prabhupada gives the example, Skanda Puran, when the inhabitants of Jangala province saw the personality of Godhead Krishna, they were so stricken with feeling that they could not withdraw their glance from him. So when they saw Lord Krishna, they were so stricken with feeling, they could not withdraw their glance from him. So at that moment, just by seeing Lord Krishna, and we find many times by seeing Lord Chaitanya, the devotees got ecstatic love for Krishna. Developing ecstatic love by heartfelt wishes. So by the heartfelt blessings and wishes of the devotees, we can get Bhava Bhakti. and that heartfelt blessings come when we do some genuine service for the Lord's devotees. Prabhupada actually mentions this, that another way to get love for Krishna is by doing some very Herculean, very difficult task for Krishna consciousness, for the Hare Krishna movement. Prabhupada actually gives this example. He says, just like a soldier goes and fights in the battle, and if he fights very valiantly, then he comes back and he gets a great medal, simply because of, let's say he goes and, alone, one single man, he's a Air Force pilot or something, and he brings down 20 ships and planes of the opposite army. Then because of his intense sacrifice, he's honored. So in a similar way, Prabhupada says that if we do some intense service for the Lord, something very wonderful, like Jayananda Prabhu, he built the chariots, or some devotee does, starts Krishna consciousness in China, like Tamal Krishna Maharaj, then that service gets the causeless mercy of the Lord to us and inspires the heartfelt blessings. In the Shukha Samhita, Narada tells Srila Vyasadeva, you have a son who is the greatest devotee of the personality of Godhead, Shukadeva Goswami. And I can observe that without any following of the regulated principles of devotional service, he is already enriched with many of the symptoms achieved by the execution of devotional service after many, many births. So again, here it's confirmed that Bhava Bhakti, to come to that stage, generally takes execution of devotional service for many, many births. But Shukadeva Goswami, he received this already, he's saying, without all of these efforts. So that was because, of course, he was a liberated soul coming from the spiritual world. And Narad Muni was noticing this, that this soul is already liberated. And so he's immediately imbuing him with this bhakti. Now, another example of developing ecstatic love by heartfelt wishes. So it's Narad Muni who actually makes all these great devotees. Here he's imparting that mercy to in the previous slide, he's imparting it to Shukadeva Goswami. And the most common example is here in this slide, he is giving this mercy to Prahlad Maharaj, who simply because of the intense desire of Narad Muni, he became a pure devotee of the Lord because Narad Muni wanted him to be. He was the son of a great demon, so Narad Muni thought, so nice, let him be a pure devotee. The next example of Narada saying he cannot understand the position of Prahlada is taken to be an indication that his position must have been achieved by Krishna's special mercy. Prahlada's initial attraction for Krishna was aroused by the good wishes of Narada. So Narad Muni cannot understand, how does this boy, he's 5 years old, he was born of a demoniac father, how does he have this spontaneous attraction to Krishna? Well, he has it because of Narad Muni's blessings. And the final example is that of Magrari the hunter, developing ecstatic love by heartfelt wishes, simply by the wish of Narad Muni. Such a fallen hunter could become a pure devotee of the Lord. Prabhupada mentions that the advancement of Magrari the hunter was due to the good wishes of Narada. So this is the end of chapter 17. And it teaches us how to reach the stage of bhava. And because this is such a vital topic for us, I thought to spend more time on this and then only do one chapter this week. So I will stop here. And if there's any comments, questions, suggestions, please share them.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam, all good Shri Prabhupada. Please accept my humble obeisances. Thank you so much, Prabhu, for such a wonderful topic, and Narad Muni topic was so much in detail that we could actually cherish the whole pastime. Prabhu, I have two questions. One, of course, we are nowhere, at least me personally, nowhere compare even to be close to Narad Muni, definitely not. But when you say good wishes, it commonly happens that sometime when children have birthday, we go to other devotees and we say, please bless our children so they become pure devotee of the Lord. Sometimes devotees tell us also. So we all pray and for each other, and we do good wishes. So is it for us also applicable that when we are asking other, they may not be very senior devotees, we all might be at the same platform. So does that apply to us also? One question. And then second, I had so Prabhu, bhava, the stage of bhava for us being a sadhaka and taking everything so slowly, like gradually, at least at my stage, I go so slow in when it comes to practice of bhakti. So what can I, at my level, speed up to come to the stage of bhava? Like, how can I attract the mercy of Krishna where I can think that, okay, maybe I can advance more in spiritual life and come to that stage?
Yes. So actually, this is why I thought this chapter was so nice, and this discussion was so nice, because it also was a revelation to me that myself, that just reading this, that actually to come to the stage of bhava is so rare and it is so difficult. But Prabhupada is telling us here a process by which we can reach it. Actually, it's also not so difficult. He's telling us what we need to do is associate with pure devotees, associate with devotees who are on that stage. And it is possible. Narad Muni was not an extraordinary person as the child of a maidservant, but he could reach that stage because of the association and service of the devotees. So while it is something that we don't want to prematurely aspire for, it is also something that, or take cheaply, it is also something that we have to aspire for by following the right process, which is the association of devotees. And then when we associate with devotees and we serve them, then like your first point, we get their heartfelt blessings. And this is exactly actually the point that I was making, and thank you for giving an example that's opposite to it, or kind of bringing it into focus by giving a contrasting example, that when we get birthday blessings or birthday wishes from others, these are blessings and they are helpful, but these are not heartfelt blessings. Heartfelt blessings come as a result of the immense pleasure of the devotee that the devotee expresses as a result of something that we offer or do, or something that service that we do to the devotee. So just like you give your blessings to any child, right? You go and your birthday wishes, you give your blessings, but to your own children who are very well behaved, as we all know, they're ideal children, right? And if they come and they serve you and they take care of you, then you'll give them your heartfelt blessings. So the level of blessing is different. So that heartfelt blessing is what gets us this stage of bhava. When, like Srila Prabhupada, with tears in his eyes, he would bless a disciple, that was different than him just glancing at someone or something like this, because that disciple had done something really sincerely to please his spiritual master, to please Krishna.
Okay, thank you so much, Prabhu. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, thank you very much. Actually, nice points there, especially the first one that you mentioned, that through the association we actually can reach Krishna. It is not just theory; it is practice. Indulekha Karuna Mataji.
Hi, Krishna Prabhuji. Thank you for the wonderful class and very beautiful narration of Narada Muni pastime. Really, we can feel how he is going through each stage of it, especially his separation from his mother, and why that's very important, and from the Lord finally. So Prabhu, my question is, every time Guru Maharaj always says that, okay, we need to make sure that we go back to Goloka Vrindavan, we go back to the spiritual world in this lifetime itself. And over here we have the example of Narada Muni, who, although at 5 years he's told that, okay, you have been some material contaminations. So, and at that time, the Lord says, okay, this is it for this lifetime. So he asks him to come back again. So my question is, we have so many lifetimes of contamination, and even in this lifetime we are at this stage. And so how can we ever get that progress unless it's like the honorary PhD where we get special mercy?
Yes, so that is actually the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. That is due. Why this can happen? That's a nice point. Like Narad Muni's mind and heart was so pure, and it took him a full lifetime. I mean, what is our hope? Truly, there isn't. But this is where the role of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes in. That it is only due to the mercy of Lord Chaitanya that Srila Prabhupada and your Guru Maharaj, they can speak like this. And they do speak like this, that in this lifetime we can go back. Because the mercy that we have today is more, it's greater than the mercy that Narad Muni had in his time. Because Lord Chaitanya did not manifest at that time. So that same mercy was there. Lord Chaitanya's mercy, Prabhupada says in one place, it's actually there always, in every age, in every yuga, for everyone. His mercy is there, but you have to work harder for it. But here at this time, Lord Chaitanya is giving love of God freely, and therefore we have to work less hard for it. And therefore we actually can truly reach this stage of bhava that requires many, many lifetimes. And we see that our ISKCON devotees, they come to that stage due to the association of other great devotees. And they reach that stage in one lifetime. So possible how? Possible only because of Lord Chaitanya's mercy. Therefore, he is Namo Mahavadanyaya, most merciful.
But that also, but we should still endeavor constantly, right?
No, so that's my point, that by our endeavoring, with our full effort and endeavor, Lord Chaitanya's mercy is so powerful that we can get it in one lifetime. If we don't endeavor, then very less chance, unless we become a mercy case, like we're saying, the special mercy. But if we don't endeavor, nothing happens. But if we endeavor, then the point is that endeavor, generally you have to endeavor for millions of lifetimes to come to that stage. But if we endeavor for one lifetime, because of Lord Chaitanya's mercy, that one lifetime of endeavor can lead us to the goal. And that is his special mercy. But yes, full endeavor.
Yes, Prabhuji, thank you so much. I have one more question. I can come back later.
No, go ahead.
Okay, so that is, you were saying that we need to get rid of all of our material associations and completely surrender to the Lord. So in the case of Narad Muni, we see he has no other attachments, nobody else for him. So how do we actually do that? How do we get over all these material associations? They have come with us. We are a package, right? It's our...
Yes. So actually, this is why Prabhupada says that we have to continue engaging in service to Krishna. This is a very nice question, actually. We have to continue our service to Krishna. That's just what we have to do, our part, our service to Krishna. And then if we are making the full effort and we're serving Krishna, then Krishna's blessing will be that he will he will bring us to that point of no material association, of what Queen Kunti says, becoming materially exhausted. He will arrange our life in such a way that we will come to that point. So we're saying, how can I do this? We don't need to do it. What we need to do is engage in service to the Lord, do as much as we can for the Lord constantly, day and night. But then, as far as breaking our material attachments, as far as coming to the stage of the dark night of the soul, like we were talking about, that Krishna will do automatically. If we're serving Krishna, he will lead our life in such a way, as we see in the lives of the great devotees, he will lead our life in such a way that we will have no choice but to do that. And the best example of this is Narad Muni, right? Did Narad Muni become free of his attachment to his mother? No, he did not. So Krishna arranged that situation, that he had to become completely surrendered to the Lord. So Krishna brought that detachment. In the same way, in our own life, we have to associate with the devotees. We need to serve the devotees. We need to take the dust and the food of the devotees. And then Krishna will arrange our life so that we will become detached.
Excellent point, Prabhuji. It's just a little scary to get there. That's all. Yes.
Yes. Yes, no, it is very scary. But Narad Muni, he lost his mother. That was his purification, his path of purification. In our case, that doesn't have to happen. In our case, Krishna can purify us in a different way, and he has 100,000 ways to purify us. So Krishna can arrange for any other situation, and different devotees have different challenges. But Gaur Govinda Maharaj, in one lecture, he says, you want love for Krishna? He says, you want love for Krishna? And the disciple says, yes, Guru Maharaj, I want to. Then he says, you will have to suffer, Baba. You will have to suffer. So, so there will be some difficulty that Krishna will give us to make us detached.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for the reassurance. Yes. Yeah. So, waiting to suffer. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. No, that is not my reassurance. This is just Gaur Govinda Maharaj. I have no qualification to do that. Yes. Pushpanjali Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for teaching the nectar of devotion. It's really so enlightening. So many questions, but I'll just ask one. Prabhuji, you said that when we do service, we get a taste for hearing. But sometimes is it like if you just want to hear and if you don't want to do, I'm just giving an example of say Sadhu Sangha, we just have like 2-3 days and that Kirtan goes on with 1,500 devotees and there is so much service there also. But you're always conflicted, I want to go to the Kirtan, Bibi Govind Maharaj is that that mental absorption in the holy name sometimes comes only when some sannyasi is doing and in the association of that many devotees. Sometimes that happens, but sometimes you feel bad that there is so much services that they need and mind is always conflicted. So when you're doing service, you're thinking of Kirtan. When we're in the Kirtan is thinking, maybe I should have done service. How do we resolve that conflict? Sometimes, opportunities get wasted trying to decide whether I should hear the Bhagavatam class or do service. Or same thing in the temple. All the time there are things going on and you have to choose between service and hearing.
Yes, no, that is a perennial question of devotees, actually. Every temple, every devotee, they all, which is more important, sadhana or service, or should I do sadhana right now? Should I do service right now? And really, it does depend on how Krishna inspires us from within our heart. Because the fact is that sometimes devotees are very inspired to serve also. And in taking Sadhu Sangha as an example, I know devotees there who are just like they're dedicated to their cooking service, for cooking for all the devotees. And that's more enjoyable to them than any amount of kirtan. And personally, like in my own life, initially, I was always just like glued to the kirtan. Like if I went to Sadhu Sangha, I had to be in the kirtan. I could not be anywhere else. And I would be in agony if I had to be outside and not be there, right? But now it's changed for me, and now I don't feel that much of an urge to do that. And sometimes I get a bigger urge to want to do the service part. So I don't, maybe due to a fall down, I'm less attached to the holy name, or maybe due to the fact that now I feel happiness in serving the devotees. So we should do what is natural to us, as long as some devotee is not getting really angry with us, right? As long as no one's getting really angry, we should do what is natural for us. And when the help is needed, it will be very clear. Like, sometimes devotees need our help. And then we have to sacrifice and say, okay, for the benefit of higher goal, for the benefit of the devotees, I need to leave the kirtan and come and do service. But on the other hand, if our heart is pulling us to the service and there are other people to help, we should go in the kirtan. Why not? So we can see what is needed, what will please the devotees, and also what we need also. So what is needed, but also like sometimes we come And we have so many services in the temple, and we come to Sadhu Sangha for a retreat, now just to absorb my mind in the holy name. So if we're coming for the purpose of a retreat, we can take a retreat. And if we're coming there for a purpose of service, then no, this is not my retreat place, this is my service place, then we can do service. And maybe our retreat is in Vrindavan when we go on Govardhan Parikrama. And when we become very advanced, we don't need any retreat. Like I see my Guru Maharaj, he never, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, he's just serving, doing his service. Even if he's going for Govardhan Puja, Govardhan Parikrama, he's going there for his disciples, to take them on Parikrama. Like I've never seen a moment in his life where he says, I need my time and I just need to go to the Dham and be alone for 2 weeks and no one come and talk to me. Some pure devotees also do that, but his mood has just never been that way. He never needs anything for himself. I've traveled with him, I've been with him, I've never seen him saying this sentence that I need 1 day for myself, just for my own spiritual life. He's constantly serving. Nityam Bhagavata Seva, and Nityam, always serving. So again, it's a very personal thing, and we can do things in a way that is good for us, and also, like I mentioned, the devotees are also happy.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Ambika Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam, Jai Srila Prabhupada. So sorry Prabhuji, I missed the class last week. So I hope I can ask 2 questions because I didn't had an opportunity to ask the question last time. So thank you. So I actually, the first question I would ask from the last class, I heard the class last night from chapter 15 and chapter 15 and chapter 16, Raganuga Sadhana Bhakti. So in that class, Prabhuji, you explained that, there are 2 parts of Raganuga Bhakti. Kamanuga Bhakti, 2 ways you can do it, Kamanuga and Sambandhuga.
Yes.
Right. So, and then I think, quickly you mentioned that Kamanuga has 2 parts, Swakiya and Parakiya. So is that Swakiya and Parakiya is same as Sambodhagacha Mai Bhakti, and the other one is Tad Bhavat Shatamika Bhakti, or are they different?
I think they're the same. From what I recall, I think they're the same. One goes with Parakiya and one goes with Swakiya.
Okay. Then, yeah, I think, there was a detailed explanation about Sambodhiga and Tad Bhavat Shatmika. So I think that's clear. Because I heard this word Swakiya and Parakiya, I think, a couple of times in previous lectures, but obviously not in the detail. So thank you for explaining that point. So in Sambodhigacha Maya Bhakti, I think it's more like, you want to enjoy, and it's like, I think the examples are queens of Dwarka, that they really want to enjoy. And in the other one, it's more like, you want to serve Krishna. So it's more like, gopis. The example is gopis.
Yes.
Rather than enjoying, you want to be, like an enjoyment for Krishna, Right.
Yes, and that's the sort of inconceivable part of this, because the queens of Krishna, they can only become queens of Krishna if their only desire is to serve Krishna. Right? They're not interested in their own enjoyment. They don't want to enjoy Krishna. I mean, that's a material desire. It's a selfish desire that I want to be the enjoyer. But what they are saying is that the rasa is such that the queens of Vrindavan, the queens of Dwarka, they are with Krishna. It's not love and separation. They're with Krishna. They are also, not that they want to enjoy, they want to serve Krishna, but they're enjoying Krishna's association. And the rasa is such that you want to be with Krishna. In other words, the devotees' happiness is in seeing Rukmini and Krishna together, not in separation. The happiness of the devotee is seeing Krishna, serving in Krishna's presence. That is kind of enjoying Krishna and his mercy and his presence. In the case of Parakiya Rasa, the mood and the taste is such that gopis are saying, I will go to hell for eternity if Krishna his headache goes away with our dust. If Krishna is happy by this, if we give our dust for his headache. So that is the difference in terms of the rasa, the mood. Like even amongst the gopis, Chandravali is more subservient to the Lord, and there's more, you could say, Krishna and Chandravali together. And in the case of Radha and Krishna, it's more separation, but there's more intensity of that feeling that I'll do anything for the service of the Lord. I don't need to really be with him, although they're always wanting to be with him. But the service is more important.
Okay, Prabhu. Thank you. Thank you. And the other questions, I mean, I had two questions from today's class, and I think quickly the clarification, probably it's just a misunderstanding. I think when we were reading the slides today, I saw somewhere that the slide said, when Krishna spoke to Narad Muni, and Krishna said, I wish that you become a pure devotee, or I think something like that. So, or you come to a point of pure transcendental love. So that means Narad Muni was at that stage, at that time he was still at the stage of bhava, he was not at the stage of prema bhakti, and that's why Krishna wished that he becomes, he comes to the level of prema bhakti.
I was thinking about that myself. I'm not completely sure that after he sees the Lord within his heart, which stage Narad Muni is at. It's possible that he's at bhava and Krishna wants him to go to prema, or maybe he was at like raganuga bhakti, or even sadhana. He was in sadhana bhakti, and Krishna thought through this process he'll come to the platform of bhava and prema. I mean, he was tears were coming down his eyes. He was established in Shuddha Sattva. His heart was soft. So I think he had bhava at that stage. But I'm not exactly sure that where exactly in the spectrum he was. But the point is that he is, Prabhupada is using him as the example of a devotee's path to bhava. So he is the story of a devotee's path to bhava. Now, what point exactly bhava starts? Does it start once he sees the Lord, or does it start, later on? That I'm not sure.
Okay. Okay, Prabhuji, thank you. And one last thing is, this question again, I think this is probably one of the foolish question, I think, it may sound, but, in my mind, I have heard and probably not have had a chance to clarify with anybody. And that's why I hope that you can give some clarification. So, the benefit of taking the remnants of, senior devotees, pure devotees, or, like acharyas, I am not sure how they would leave their remnants in the plate, like they would leave something aside when they are eating, or they would just leave something what they are eating. Because if you are just thinking about as a hygienic perspective, and again this is like very cruel, but maybe sometimes we think that because of the hygiene person you don't want to eat leftover from somebody's plate. You I mean that's like very normal even in our family house. The way I was brought up, like we don't eat anybody's leftover. That's how I was brought up. So how do you convince or conceive that you take remnants of somebody who is not your family member, you don't know? I mean, how do you convince your mind that that's
Yes.
how?
Yes. Well, it's most of these things are a material estimation. Like the devotee is so transcendental that when we come in that association of that devotee, we want their remnants, and they will leave their remnants for the devotees, or maybe they don't leave it, but whatever is left on their plate, whatever crumbs are left, the devotees take it. And there's no real way to understand it other than actually being in the association of those devotees and experiencing it. Because like you're saying, ordinarily speaking, you'll never take someone's leftover. I mean, you never say, is this hygienic or not? Is this, what am I getting in the food? But when the pure devotee is there, it's just, you can see his body is transcendental. I mean, their body is transcendental, like Prabhupada's feet and the feet of the devotees. You see, they're so soft. and they're old people. And generally, by that time, the feet are very crusty and old, and but they have lotus feet because they actually have lotus feet. And normally, if you wash someone's feet, then the water that's coming from their feet, you would never drink it. I mean, you could pay someone $100,000, they won't drink that water. But the devotee's water from his feet, we drink it down like the best lemonade. It's the best nectar. So the feet that has washed the water that has washed the feet of a devotee. So these are the devotee's body is transcendental. This is the next book, Nectar of Instruction. Rupa Goswami tells us this very point, that the devotee's body is transcendental. We cannot see it from a material perspective, and therefore the feet, the food, everything related to the devotee is completely transcendental. And yeah, it's actually very, very pleasurable to eat that remnants. Yes.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you for your nice questions, Mataji. Very nice points. Thank you. Sham Kishori Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandat Pranam. Wonderful session. Thank you, Prabhuji. So my question was about, what I read about Narad Muni in chapter 15. It was mentioned that his mood of attraction for Krishna out of those 6, it was devotional obedience. And because it was not spontaneous, it was not categorized under Agatmika Bhakti. So now in this chapter, we are seeing that, he is at Bhav and possibly Prema, which I assume is much about Agatmika Bhakti. So then how come, in the previous chapter 15, it was mentioned that it's not spontaneous, or was it that at that point it was not spontaneous? Or
So Ragatmika Bhakti is the bhakti that the residents of Vrindavan have for Krishna. That's the bhakti in the spiritual world. So Ragatmika Bhakti has nothing to do with Narad Muni's story. So now, given that fact, what is your question?
So Ragatmika Bhakti, you said, is for residents of Vrindavan. Then does it not come under Bhava or Prema? Because now we are saying that Narad Muni was at Bhava or Prema, but in that chapter it was said he did not have Ragatmika Bhakti. So is Ragatmika Bhakti above even Prema, or?
So Raganuga Bhakti is the practice of the mood of devotion of Ragatmika Bhakti. Then from Raganuga, one goes to Bhava, from Bhava to Prema. Now the residents of Vrindavan are Prema Bhaktas. So on the level of Prema, if one is in the spiritual world, one is on the level of Prema, or on the level of Prema, if we go to the spiritual world or enter into Krishna's Leelas in the material world, then we would be doing Ragatmika Bhakti. So until Narad Muni, it's just a specific unique flavor, or so it's a unique part of Prema. So it is the same as Prema. It's not higher or lower. It's not an issue of higher or lower. Ragatmika Bhakti is one type of Prema, so to say. So until Narad Muni is not actually participating in the pastimes of the Lord, he is not practicing Ragatmika Bhakti, simply by just the definition of what Ragatmika Bhakti is. Now at a certain point in the Leelas, Narad Muni actually does become a gopi, and he participates in Krishna's pastimes. And at that point, he is practicing Ragatmika Bhakti. So he's still a Prema Bhakta like he was before, but in his form as a gopi, now he's entered the pastimes of the Lord, and he's performing Ragatmika Bhakti.
So, I mean, you said it's one of the flavors of Prema. So, but is it one of the higher flavors, or there's no higher or lower in Prema?
I mean, I think there's like Mahabhav, which only Radharani has. So like there's more and more, you could say, expansions of Prema, because Prema is also unlimited. Love of God is unlimited, and different souls, according to their capacities, can experience more and more Prema. But actually, because we're so limited, we cannot experience the Prema that like Mother Yashoda is feeling for Krishna, because we would literally pop. Like we cannot even handle that ecstasy. So Prema is really the stage of Prema, but for different devotees, it is slightly different. And I'm sure it can intensify and increase over time. Bhakti is always increasing. Bhakti is always increasing. But my point is that Srila Prabhupada here could have his prema increasing and be on the highest stage of prema, just like a devotee who's a Ragatmika Bhakta in Vrindavan. Ragatmika Bhakta is just when prema is done in the context of Krishna's Leelas. It's not an issue of higher or lower. So a devotee who's not part of Krishna's Leela but is preaching in the material world can have the same high level of prema, or even higher. Let's say, I don't know if there's anything higher in prema, but even let's say for just talking point, that can have a higher level of prema than someone in Vrindavan.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Nice question. Nice. Kishore Prabhu, since this is your first question, I'll go to you, and then after that we will, I think, another will go. Yes.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for wonderful.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Like just this is from 14th chapter. Like in the I think they mentioned, right, like knowledge, jnana, and vairagya detachment is not part of sadhana bhakti. I didn't quite understand, like because we have gone through Bhagavad Gita, it's about knowledge, all the yoga, everything.
Yes.
And here he was saying it's not part of sadhana bhakti. So, and sadhana bhakti is the pure, like, initial stage of devotional service.
Yes.
I couldn't relate both. Just looks to me contradictory a little bit. I didn't understand, like, how
Yes.
it relate together.
Yes. So actually, what that is saying there is that jnana and vairagya alone by themselves do not constitute bhakti. So if someone is a vairagi, like in the case of Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, one devotee was just drinking milk. He was a brahmana, very pure brahmana, and just drinking milk. And the devotees brought him in front of the Lord. And they said, "Oh, my Lord, this devotee is very special. He only drinks milk." And Lord Chaitanya said, "Do you think that by drinking milk, he can reach me? That just by drinking milk, he can attain me?" So Lord Chaitanya's point was that, no, he also has to develop his devotion. Jnana and vairagya alone are not bhakti. But yes, like you're saying, once we have bhakti, very fundamental parts of bhakti, or you could say principles of bhakti, are jnana and vairagya. You're on mute, bro. Yes.
Sorry. Thank you, bro. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes. So that's a very key distinction there. Yes.
Thank you for explaining that, Prabhu. Thank you. It was a nice explanation.
Wonderful. Thank you, Prabhu. You had another comment, I think, also. Yes.
You had a question, but I think I'll just ask it offline.
No, it's okay. We have a few minutes. Go ahead.
No, it's okay, Prabhu. I'll just ask it offline.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhu. Any other final questions, comments?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. So I just wanted a clarification. I know Shama Kishori Mataji's question, and I think you answered, but somehow I think I got lost somewhere. So Ragatmika Bhakti is part of, Raganuga. It's like a part of sadhana bhakti, right? No?
Ragatmika Bhakti is the bhakti of the residents of Vrindavan, and Raganuga Bhakti is part of sadhana. And as part of Raganuga Bhakti, we follow the Ragatmika Bhaktas. We emulate the bhakti, which is the Ragatmika Bhakti of the Ragatmika Bhaktas who are the associates of Vrindavan. So the residents of Vrindavan are Ragatmika Bhaktas, and they practice Ragatmika Bhakti. So that bhakti specifically refers to the liberated devotees of the Lord who are relating with Krishna in a particular rasa. And whatever rasa is attractive to their sadhaka, they will find that devotee and try to emulate them. And when they do that, that is Raganuga Bhakti.
Okay, so just as a clarification, I think, just to summarize, so Raganuga Bhakti is part of Sadhana Bhakti. That's what we discussed in chapter 15 and 16. And then, above Raganuga Bhakti, above Sadhana Bhakti is, Bhava Bhakti and Prema Bhakti. And on top of that, I think it's a Ragatmika Bhakti, right? So.
No, that's why it's explaining that the residents of Vrindavan, they're also on the level of Prema. There's nothing higher than Prema. So they're also prema bhaktas, but because their prema is happening in the spiritual world, there's just a special term for it, and that's called ragatmika bhakti. So they are on the level of prema. And then we were discussing how there could be also levels within prema. Like Radharani has Mahabhava, she has the highest prema, whereas other residents, they don't have that level of prema, but they're still on the level of prema. Simply because on that level, there's so much ecstasy that if we are a minute soul like ourselves, and we're not actually Krishna's Hladini Shakti like Radharani is, if we get too much prema, we can almost pop. Like it can be too much for us. We cannot handle that love and that bhakti. Yes.
Pop like a balloon.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Okay, wonderful. It's exactly 11 o'clock, the time that we stop. Thank you very much for your very wonderful association. Sham Kishori Mataji, do you have one last question?
Actually, I did not, Prabhuji, but I'll take this opportunity to see if you have any guidance about the exam.
Yes, I'm going to work on that this week, Mataji. I'm really sorry. I just started this new job, and I was thinking actually even last night I should do it, but then it was 10 o'clock at night and I couldn't. So
Prabhuji, please don't apologize. We really appreciate everything you're doing for us so selflessly. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you. I'm also learning through this process, and all of you have been very kind with me. This is the first time I'm teaching, so it's next time it will go more smooth and more smooth like that. So yes.
I think you're an eternal teacher, Prabhu.
No, no, no.
Prabhu, which when is the exam? What date is it?
Yeah. So next week we'll do the final 2 chapters. Now next week is Janmashtami weekend. But it's Saturday morning. I think it should be okay for everyone. So we'll do the final 2 chapters next week, and then you'll have the homework for those final 2 chapters, and then I'll give you the homework. I'll give you the exam starting the week of August 6th, and then like we did last time with Gita, you have like 10 days basically, depending on how much preparation time you need. You'll have 10 days to complete the exam. But the key thing that I need to give you is the study guide. So that's the thing that I need to work on so that you can prepare for the exam, so that when you get the exam, then you'll have also, then you work with your individual proctors and you set an exact time for the exam, starting the 6th and ending maybe, with the 3rd of September. So you have like a 2-week period to complete that exam.
Probably 6th of September through...
No, sorry. I got confused. I was looking at, I'm sorry. So 6th of September through through maybe the 17th.
Okay. So we will not have a class on 4th and 11th?
4th and yes, we will not have classes then. Yes.
Prabhuji, next week it is Janmashtami. You're coming to Indianapolis, but how are you going to take class, Prabhuji?
So this is something that Pandit Shivas Prabhu will share with all of you tomorrow, that actually I won't be coming for Janmashtami to Indianapolis because I'll be here in Chicago for Janmashtami.
We'll miss you, Prabhuji. We thought you are coming.
I know, Mataji, but it's just this time only. And this period, it's a little difficult, very hectic. But then maybe for Radhashtami, we'll come to Indianapolis. Yes.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Yes. Thank you, Mataji.
So Prabhuji, it will be also like Bhagavad Gita, like 3 parts essay, Q&A, like the slokas and the translation, and as well as multiple choice. Is that how you are planning to such? Will
Yes.
there be an essay?
Yes. So the thing is that in Nectar Devotion, we only have 4 verses. So definitely those 4 verses will be there, obviously, right? We need to know those very well. So you'll have to write down those 4 verses. And then in the Nectar Devotion, all the questions that you have done, I mean, all those questions, those homework questions, that is your study guide pretty much. I mean, if I were to make a study guide, which I'll do very soon, send it to you, you have to review all the homework questions, because those are the questions that you've had. Those are the things you've thought about. I will ask you things that you've covered. So that is my main source of questions, is the questions that you already had for your homework. It also checks to see that you've been doing your homework. So make sure to complete your homework and revise it and review it, because most of your questions will come from your homework. And then, as you mentioned, Mataji, there'll be one essay question. So you have the 4 verses, you have one essay question, and the rest will be short answer questions, or maybe I'll make it into multiple choice, but it'll be the questions in your homework that I'll make as a multiple choice, and you have to choose one of the answers, the correct answer. What is some bandhanuga mean, right? That was one of the terms that we covered. So things like that are in your homework and things that we covered, I'll have those as multiple choice or short answer questions.
So Prabhuji, the mystery now remains around the essay. What will be the topic of essay? Yeah. Summary of Nectar of Devotion.
And most likely, most likely it will be describe all the stages of bhakti. So this whole 19 chapters, it's all about sadhana, vaidhi sadhana, raganuga, bhava, and prema, right? And all the different stages of bhakti. And most of the focus was on vaidhi sadhana with the 64 items of devotional service. So I was thinking one nice question would be list the 64 items of devotional service. But then I thought that none of you may show up in the next class. But no, the essay question will be more on describe the whole, the flow of bhakti from the day you enter the temple to the time that you enter the spiritual world. What is the flow of bhakti? And also, I'll focus on the items of devotional service that are most important. So the most important items, the most potent items, the different sections of those items, like the first 20 were most important, the do's and the don'ts. So you need to understand everything. You may not remember all 64 items. Maybe the person who does remember those would get an honorary degree. But yeah, so we'll just get the essence. Yes.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Yes, Mataji. Sham Rupini Mataji, you're saying something?
Prabhuji, I just had a question. I just got one question right now. Like when we say devotees are traveling north, what does it mean by traveling north? Wherever you read, it says devotees travel north. What does it actually signify?
Like Narad Muni, he traveled north?
Yes.
Yes, that's a very nice question. I think it means the Himalayas. See, the Himalayas, Badrinath, Kedarnath, these are like, since Vedic times, the most sacred places. So he traveled north, meaning he went to the mountains. Badrinath, that's where the sages live. And also Naimisharanya, Krishna appeared in northern India, so to say, Vrindavan. So most of the holy places for the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, that is for the Bhagavatam, most of the places of worship are in the north. Naimisharanya is in Lucknow, it's in northern India. Vrindavan, which is the place of Krishna, which is the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Madhuvan, Dhruva Maharaj is there. And then all the Badrinath, Kedarnath, all of these sacred mountains, they're all on the northern side. So I think they go north.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
Prabhuji, slokas, just write the English sloka and translation. That's all right. Prabhuji, we need to write the meaning of each word.
Yes, just verse and translation. Okay. And the verse can be in Sanskrit or in the Roman transliteration, and the translation needs to be in English.
Oh, verse not in English. Okay.
So like some people, they prefer writing in Sanskrit, Devanagari script. So the verse can be in Devanagari script or in the English transliteration of the verse, like we have in the Gita, right? So it can be in either one, and the translation needs to be, of course, given in English. Yes.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, I have a question. This Children were talking. I forgot my question, Prabhu. Yes, study guide, Prabhu. Study guide. You have given us waves of devotion and nectar of devotion. It's the same thing. So isn't that from there only we're going to prepare everything, or is there a separate study guide?
So I did actually give you initially. I gave you on WhatsApp another study guide in addition to the waves of devotion. But quite honestly, the waves of devotion is the best. It was just very, very nice. But there are some additional points in the study guide which were very nice. So I'll share it again with you. I'll share that study guide. But what I meant was a study guide for the exam. But I need to give you a study guide for the exam. But we basically went through it right now, which I explained is that most of your questions on the exam are going to come from your homework questions, the questions that I give you every week. So if you go through those, if you've done all those, and then if you go through those and review them, as far as content, you'll get most of the content. The essay question will be on describe the different stages of devotion, the different levels and stages of devotion, and you have to go in detail and describe that nicely. And then you have to memorize the 4 verses that you need to memorize. So that's basically the study guide. I may add or subtract something more, but I'll post that on WhatsApp.
So this study guide will be a different one than what you gave before, or is it going
So this is basically a study sheet. It's just a few points for your exam. But then the study guide for the whole Nectar devotion that I gave before, it's on WhatsApp, it's on the group, but I gave it a long time before. I'll share it again. And to just for your reference and also to answer the homework questions and things, you can use that study guide and also the waves of devotion and also Srila Prabhupada's Nectar devotion. Yes.
Sure, Prabhu. And Prabhu, when you said the levels of bhakti, so we have to describe sadhana bhakti, bhava bhakti, and prema bhakti, all 3. We have to describe it in detail.
Yes, and the different stages and types. So we have sadhana bhakti, and there in that you have Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, and then in Raganuga you have the 2 types, Sambandhanuga, Kamanuga. So like this, you go in detail, you describe the different stages, different levels, even within those stages. So I want some, detailed discussion on those levels, but not too detailed. Just like we did, I'll give you a word count. Like I don't remember what I did last time, but I'll give you the same word count. That was something manageable, and you can do that.
Well, last time was 200, Prabhu.
That was very less, Prabhu.
Yeah.
It was very less. We had a way more to write. We wrote a lot.
Yeah. No, so this time will also be 200. And hopefully you won't have so much to write. This time, it's not summarize the whole Nectar devotion. It's describe the stages of devotion. Yes.
Okay, Prabhu.
That's feasible in 200 words. Yes.
Okay, Prabhu. Thank you so much. And Prabhu, I had one more question. There are so many words. Sometimes I notice like you have a specific definition which uses Sanskrit word, but sometimes it's not in the Nectar of Devotion, but it's there in the study guide or somewhere else is there. So I was wondering, in the exam, would you be asking those Sanskrit words? Okay, so what does it mean?
If we covered it and if it's on your homework and on the study sheet that I will give, then yes, I will. But not all the terms. So the thing is that the Nectar devotion is a summary study, right? So therefore, the waves of devotion, it goes back to Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu to the actual verses and also pulls points from there. Some points that Srila Prabhupada does not cover in the Nectar devotion. So the 2 main books for the Nectar devotion is Srila Prabhupada's Nectar devotion and also the waves of devotion. Because, that's just the way they teach Bhakti Shastri. They really do use that book. It's a very nice guidebook. So you want to also read the waves of devotion. And if there's points in there, make a note of that, because it's not actually very long, waves of devotion, but it's very systematic.
But if it is in the homework, then it will come. But if it's not a part of homework, that it may not come, right? Those particular terminologies.
No, most of the questions will come from the homework. But some questions will come. So this way, those who study very hard, they will be rewarded. So basically, some questions, they may come, but I won't ask very obscure ones, like main terms that are mentioned in the waves of devotion in our lectures. But if you just go over the homework, you will definitely pass. That is my guarantee. So if you know all the answers to the questions of the homework, you know all the verses, and you prepare the essay question, you will pass. Now, if you want 100%, then it will be a little more.
Okay, bro. Understood. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So, Prabhuji, and one small question. So the remaining chapters after 19, is that, I know it's not on the exam, but is that something we should just read for our own, reference, or?
To get the degree, you don't need to. To go back to Godhead, we probably need to. So we can do it whenever we have time. In other words, you can even do it after you complete Bhakti Shastri. Yes.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you. Thank you,
Ramakrishna.
Prabhuji.
That was my question too. Prabhuji, is there a way in which you would be able to teach us the remaining two?
Well, actually, I mean, that's future courses like Bhakti Vaibhav and Bhakti Sarvabhauma. So actually, those are so to say, elevated that they actually come after the Bhagavatam. So in the sequence that is there of these courses, you first do this, then you do Bhagavatam, and then you do Chaitanya Charitamrita and the remaining chapters of Nectar Devotion, something like that. So, I mean, my mother is doing Bhagavatam. So after this, you can do Bhagavatam. And of course, those chapters of Nectar Devotion are always available for us. But as far as the course goes, right now, I'm not aware of a course that offers that. And, in VIG, I think they're offering, but I don't know how much it's actually being offered. But we can find out.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
So, Prabhu, after this Bhakti Shastri, are you starting Bhagavatam?
No, that is my mother's area. She's doing that, and she's very, they're making very good progress. It's very, very nice, very nectarian. After this, I will recontinue Bhakti Shastri because I will just circle around.
So we can join again.
Well, that's the thing, this is why I'm just circling around, so that students can then go to more advanced teachers and can get some more advanced devotion. So otherwise they might become too bored. So yes.
No, Prabhu. No, Prabhu. Actually, like I remember how you mentioned one time that your Guru Maharaj, His Holiness Gopal Maharaj, said that you must do at least 5 to 6 times Bhakti Shastri. So at least me, on my personal level, people like me, more mudhas, they need at least 5-6 times of Bhakti Shastri. At least me, Prabhu.
No, and also what that means is that then we do Bhakti Shastri by teaching it. So after this, then you can teach it.
Krishna.
Of course, this is why we're doing it, so that we can teach it. So
Prabhuji, Champaklata Mataji is already teaching all the young children, she's teaching Bhagavad Gita verses, and that's such a wonderful service.
Wow.
No, Mataji, no, little effort, little endeavor. Even though I'm not worthy and completely incapable, but trying little bit with the inspiration of Prabhu and Guru Maharaj mercy, little bit, Prabhu. So, Prabhu, you can bless me a little bit.
Well, all glories to your service. All glories to
all glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Yes.
All
glories to the services of all the devotees on this call. All of you are engaged in services around America, all around America, and also India, and also wherever, and also UK, and so you are going to be using all of this in your services wherever you are teaching or preaching. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu. Prabhu, quick question. When is Mataji's class, Bhagavatam class? How can we join?
Yes. So I'll put the link on the group. It's right before my class. It's from, it ends like at 8:30 and mine starts at 9:30, and I think it starts at 7:30 CST. So 8:30 EST, something like that.
Yes, Prabhu. Yes. Got it.
And Prabhu, is she going canto by canto, or she's
going canto by canto, and they're already on 3rd canto, but it's all the first 2 cantos are recorded, so people can go back and listen to the first 2 cantos in their own time, and you can join starting the 3rd canto. Actually, that's where Bhagavatam gets difficult. So actually, no, maybe they're past 3rd canto. I cannot remember. But
no, Prabhu, we are still doing. We are still on the 3rd chapter.
3rd canto. Okay. Yes. So please join that. Yes. I'll share the link on the group.
And Prabhu, did you say that it's 2 hours before your class starts?
Yes. So it ends basically immediately before my class starts, and it starts at an hour and a half before this class. So 8:30 EST.
Okay.
Okay. Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you.
Hare
Thank
Krishna,
you.
Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.